Hey you guys, it's Britt. Tonight we're here to talk about the ethics of true crime, specifically on social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So if you're interested, please keep watching. All right, you guys, so I've been working on this video for a little while, and what I wanted to do was just make sure that I had all my thoughts because this isn't something that I would make into like a series. It's just going to be like one video, and I want it to be a discussion as always. I come to you guys with my opinion, and you guys give yours back, and it's all good. True crime is a very passionate topic for some people, so just know that I'm not saying that my opinion is right and yours is wrong, and that's just the way that it is. I would like this to be a discussion, and if you guys feel like I'm wrong in any of my takes, then vent in the comments down below. And if you think like me, that's fine, and if you don't, that's fine too. I just feel like this is a very passionate topic for some people, and we're not always all going to think the exact same way, but just know that I come in peace and love, and we're all entitled to our opinions. So that's what I'm here to do. It's all good. I love true crime. And I was introduced to true crime first, obviously, on TV, and then it kind of blew up on YouTube. If you look up the actual definition of what is true crime, it will come back with nonfiction, literary, podcasts, and film genre in which the author examines an actual crime and details the action of real people. And I think that that's really important. It's nonfiction. So, usually, nonfiction, when you are reiterating a story that is nonfiction, it doesn't need to be embellished. It doesn't need to be exaggerated because you're speaking on the facts and the facts alone. You're delivering the facts of the case, how things unfolded, and presenting it to your audience, no matter if you're on YouTube, TikTok, a podcast, writing a book. If it's nonfiction, it's called nonfiction for a reason. And that was one of the things that I saw early on in true crime that sort of, I don't want to say it bothered me, but I noticed it, was that I would know a lot about the case from having already seen a documentary or watching the court trials or whatever. And when this creator would retell the story, I would notice that things were exaggerated, whether it was the history of the murder or some of the facts about the victim or how things played out. Sometimes they were embellished just a little bit to make the story more interesting for the viewer. But most people that really know and love true crime, they don't need embellishments. They want to hear the facts. We stick to the evidence and we come up with opinions and conclusions based on the evidence. True crime on YouTube specifically really started to blow up in, I would say, like 2015, 2016. That's when you really started to see many creators shift from, some people shifted from makeup content to true crime. Some started out as lifestyle vloggers and switched to true crime. And I'm sure that everyone has their own decision on why they started doing true crime. I think the migration from not being a true crime channel to only focusing on true crime can be sort of interesting because some people will sort of stumble into it and they'll decide to share their opinions on this case, and then they'll see the views and attention that it gets and they'll decide to stick with it. Some people just so happen to love true crime and they do it until they get a bigger audience and their views increase slowly over time. I've always been a little fascinated with if someone just decides to do a true crime video and they get a lot of views and then they change their entire channel. For me, and this is just a personal thing, I wonder how passionate they are about sharing victims' stories, or are they only doing it because they did one or two videos, saw that the views were insane, and that's why they decided to stick with it. I just kind of wonder about what the intent is. Do you really love true crime, or is it because you did those couple videos and you saw the views, so you decided to change your channel because of that, if that makes sense? Within true crime channels on YouTube, there are a lot of sort of interesting mashups on how people deliver their true crime content. Some people will do mukbangs, which I find very, very disturbing. I can't just sit there and eat, a big bowl of pasta while I'm talking about someone's worst day of their life. A lot of these cases involve things like domestic violence, sexual assault, loss of a child, really, really heavy topics. And I've always kind of wondered, how can you sit there and be eating like chicken fingers and fries while you're talking about someone being mutilated, or things to do with like necrophilia? Some of these things are really dark, and I just always kind of side eye someone who can sit there and eat chicken fingers while they're trying to deliver a really important video to their audience. And again, that's just my personal take on it. I just feel like a lot of times with the true crime stories that are being shared, they need to be delivered with the utmost care and respect of not only the victim, who's no longer with us, but the family. Because I always think, if this victim's mother or husband or daughter or cousin is watching this video be delivered on YouTube, is it coming off as being a tasteful video? That's sort of my question. I always try to like put myself in the shoes of the family that is still surviving, because obviously all these victims have family. Even if it's your great, great, great aunt, you might come across a video on YouTube. You never know. And I've just always kind of given a little bit of a side eye to the mukbang true crime mashup. It's a little weird, my opinion. Now, of course, we can't talk about true crime mashup without talking about the makeup and true crime community. And obviously the top creator in that category, to my knowledge, is definitely Bailey Sarian. And I've heard people's opinions on her differ. I do subscribe to her channel. I don't watch all of her videos just because I'm busy myself, but if she's delivering a video that I'm interested in, I will, listen to it in the background. Something that I've heard from people often is, can you really care that much about delivering a story if you're focused on doing your makeup at the same time? And I'll tell you guys how I feel about it. I think that the makeup is a distraction. I think that it's a task. It's something to do. If it was, I would hope that if it was genuinely taking her attention away from delivering the story, that she would choose to not do that anymore. And I'm not in her head. I can't speak for her. But if I felt like I was being distracted and not delivering a good video, then I would cut out the get ready with me portion of the video. I know that a lot of people look at the makeup and true crime mashup like I look at the mukbang and true crime mashup. But I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to, is the video being delivered with facts based off of the evidence? And are the opinions being based off of those evidence and facts as well? But I do know that a lot of people just don't care for the makeup and true crime style of content, and that's a personal decision. But as I said, I would hope that any of these YouTubers that do makeup while talking about true crime, if they felt like they were being distracted, I would hope that they would make the decision to not do what was distracting them. If they really care about sharing these victims' stories, I would hope. But again, I'm not in anyone's head, so who knows? The next thing I want to talk about is thumbnails and titles for true crime on YouTube. This is something that when I, a couple minutes ago, when I talked about the families possibly coming across this content, I also think of the title and the thumbnail, because when you think about it, those are the first two things that you're going to see. If you do stumble across a video, first two things, you're going to see the title and the thumbnail. And I know that clickbait gets more views than something that is not clickbait, or if you have a really crazy title and a really crazy thumbnail, it's going to help you in the algorithm. However, I draw the line at true crime because when you're talking about someone losing their life, that was the worst day of their life, I feel like the clickbait and the crazy thumbnails should be reserved for anything but someone being brutally murdered. I understand that people want to help themselves in the algorithm, get that. But I do think that there should be some reservations when we're talking about someone who is literally no longer on this earth. They can't defend themselves. And yes, the story is public, but there can be a lot of respect given if the clickbait and totally insane thumbnails could be saved for anything but this person who lost their life. So lastly, what I want to do is I want to go over the pros and the cons of true crime online. I think that there are a few pros. There are more cons just on my, personal list. The first pro that I think of is that it can help unsolved cases gain more attention than they might have if they weren't being talked about. A lot of times when a YouTuber presents a video on an unsolved case, not only did it get that YouTuber interested, but all of their subscribers could now be interested in this case, and they might know information that wouldn't have been discovered otherwise. So I do think that as far as shining a light on unsolved cases, it can be a good thing. But again, as long as the video is being delivered based off of facts, evidence, and things that are actually known and not conspiracies. We'll get into conspiracies a little bit later. If the video is being delivered full of facts, I think that shining a light on some of these unsolved cases can be absolutely groundbreaking and a really, really good thing for the families who are left with no answers. I have heard from some of you guys that taking in this true crime content has also helped your awareness when it comes to issues like stalking, domestic violence, sexual assault, and it's because you take in a lot of true crime content, which I think can be a really good thing. Sometimes, we get so tied up in our day-to-day lives that those aren't really things that you're thinking about, but because of consuming a lot of true crime content, it can kind of make you put your guard up, make you think outside of what I'm doing today, like watching that guy at the grocery store who might be looking at me, or watching that, lady that is kind of, giving me a weird vibe. I think that in some ways it can make you a little bit more aware of your surroundings and just remind you that the world is a really scary place. And I'm reminded of that every single time I listen to a true crime case online or on TV or whatever. It really just solidifies the fact that you cannot trust anyone at any point in time. Sometimes even your own family, which is sad, but that's a conversation for another day. One thing that I've really kind of learned about a lot is how often the police officers and law enforcement can sometimes mishandle these cases. It's shocking to me to hear how often families' questions are not answered, or evidence is improperly handled, or evidence is lost. These kinds of things I didn't know about until I started listening to true crime stuff, and I get so frustrated for the family, for the victim's family and stuff, to hear that your loved one lost their life, and this piece of evidence that was supposed to be handled by law enforcement went missing and they haven't seen it in 10 years. So that was one thing that I really learned a lot about, and it was very, very alarming for me. Um, I don't really know if that's per se a positive, but it definitely made me more aware that law enforcement is far from perfect when it comes to being allies for the victim's family. It just really made me realize that even though law enforcement is there to serve and protect, they are imperfect just like the rest of us. And unfortunately, sometimes things slip through the cracks. They get all screwed up. And when you're talking about trying to solve a crime, that's a really bad position to be in. All right, so let's move on to the negatives of true crime. First of all, you're making money off someone's worst day of their life. I think that that's a common concern that a lot of us have. I will tell you guys, I really appreciate Kendall Ray. Kendall Ray is someone who I have seen many of her videos where she donates the income from that video to an organization that is helping victims of crimes. I absolutely love that. I think Kendall Ray is a great example of what a good true crime channel is. I don't think that she's been perfect by any means, because no YouTuber is perfect. But I really like how she will get the family involved. She will donate AdSense to organizations. She's a good example of what speaking for the victim looks like. And I'm sure if you guys like true crime, you know all about Kendall Ray, but I think that she's a really great example of how to not only give a voice, but also give back to these organizations that are really helping the victims' families, and to sometimes help solve these unsolved cases and doing all kinds of really good things for their communities. Another negative, and I see this more on TikTok than anywhere else, and I'm not going to talk about it for super long because it's just so ridiculous. Romanticizing serial killers. Can we not do that? Why are we even doing that? I know that this has been happening for decades. Why are we even considering romanticizing a serial killer? Could you imagine how you would feel if your sister or your daughter or your brother was murdered by someone like Ted Bundy, and you see pages on TikTok of people saying that he is the greatest man alive and having merch with his face all over it? I just don't understand the romanticizing serial killers. I never will. And I think that it's one of the worst parts of true crime communities. Next, let's talk about fact checking, because this can be a big problem on YouTube. If you think about big networks like Investigation Discovery, they have entire teams of people that are fact checking and working very closely with law enforcement and with the families to make sure that their TV show or documentary is based off the facts. If you compare that to a single YouTuber, if it was just me, I don't have a team of people who can fact check what I'm looking into. I have to do all the research for myself. And you have a lot of these true crime channels that are doing so much content that they don't have time to dive into the evidence and review the case from beginning to end. They're utilizing Google as their source, and some of them are pumping these videos out with only a couple of hours of research. True crime is so time consuming because of the research that has to be done on each of these cases. And once you come to your channel and you have your facts wrong, when you're talking about someone who lost their life, you will absolutely be ratioed. And I think that it's for good cause, especially if you're proven to not take the time to research the cases. It's a huge slap in the face to the family, and that's who I always think of at the end of the day. How is the family going to feel about someone lying about their family member who lost their life? Fact checking is huge, and that's one of the biggest things that I see in between networks and YouTubers. And again, I'm not saying all YouTubers, but the ones that are wanting to pump these videos out and are just utilizing Google for an hour or two, quick research just so that they can get the video out, is really, really distasteful, but unfortunately it happens. Speaking of the family, I often wonder how many YouTubers get permission of the surviving family to share this victim's story and monetize it. I understand that it's all public news, but as an added measure, I think that if you're going to dedicate your whole channel to doing true crime, it would be something really genuine, and I think that you would receive a lot of praise for it if, and I know some YouTubers do this, but many don't, to at least be able to say, I contacted the family, they weren't interested in giving me any information or doing an interview, but I did contact them. And that could literally take 10 seconds at the beginning of the video, and it shows so much to your audience and to people who might come across that video, to just be able to say, at least I tried, bare minimum. I remember there was a video that Stephanie Harlow did, and the victim's family contacted her and asked for the video to be taken down. I don't remember all the details about that, and obviously the video's gone now, but I do remember that, and she ended up having to remove the video from her channel. So maybe at least making an attempt to contact the family would be a good added measure. But especially if your entire channel is true crime, I think that it would go really far, but what do I know? Let's talk about conspiracy theories again and embellishing the story for clicks and views. Not only does this damage the legacy of the victim, but specifically with open cases that have not gone to trial yet, it can be extremely damaging to the case. And I think that it's, not only is it defamatory towards the victim, but if you're out here spreading nonsense and conspiracies, even if you're debunking them, we've had that conversation before, it's not your job to debunk conspiracies on an open criminal investigation. That should be left up to law enforcement while this can go through the criminal justice system. That's why these people are hired to do exactly what they do. I just feel like the exaggerating, embellishing, and nonsensical conspiracy theories really frustrate me. You guys heard me rant about that last year with the Gabby Petito situation, and it was just complete nonsense. I felt like it was using this poor girl's name for clicks and views, and frankly, it made me sick to my stomach, but again, that's just my opinion. Something else that I've seen with a couple of videos that I've watched is some people trying to insert like snarky, lighthearted jokes into delivering their stories when it comes to talking about these horrible, tragic cases. And I get it, some people have dark humor and some people use jokes and laughing as a way to lighten the mood, or if they're uncomfortable, they might crack a joke. I think that true crime is the one genre on YouTube that would benefit from not having snark or jokes inserted into the storytelling. And I understand dark humor, but I also think of literally speaking about someone being brutally murdered and leaving behind a family and loved ones who might come across this video. I don't really think that the surviving family and friends would appreciate the comedic style storytelling that a couple of people have tried to do here and there. It's just kind of like not the time or place. I think that these things should be handled with white gloves and the utmost care and respect. The last thing I want to talk about is the victim blaming issue. And this can happen either intentionally or unintentionally. I notice that sometimes when personal biases or personal opinions are inserted too much into the story, what it can do is indirectly place blame on the victim, because what you're doing is you're taking your set of morals and your personal opinions and you're inserting them into this story about this person that lost their life. And even though that person is a victim, it can come off as if you're trying to blame them for getting into the situation that they were in, or being in a toxic relationship, or being at the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't see it really often, but unfortunately, I do see it. And victim blaming is something that is extremely upsetting for obvious reasons. And what I usually see is the victim blaming comes around once the narrator is inserting too much of their personal opinions on how life should be lived or not lived into the story. Hopefully that makes sense. So I cannot wait to hear from you guys on this. And again, guys, like, these are just my opinions. If you disagree with everything, that's okay. If you agree with some of what I say, that's cool too. I think that true crime is so awesome in so many ways. But unfortunately, just like a lot of other things, I think some social media personalities can really water it down and give it a really bad look. True crime can be extremely, educational and intriguing if it's actually delivered in a meaningful way with care and respect, and if the story is based off of the facts and not embellishments and conspiracies. So either way, tell me how you feel down below. So for now, if you like the video, please leave a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.